Assalamualaikum everyone, this is Ms. Auntie Nolchipala and I am from the foundation level batch for at the Ryan School our campus. Today my task is to talk with Maya for 25 minutes by the topic water, the origin of life and language. In this task I will ask some questions for Maya and she will answer my question. Let's go and start my new task.
Hi, how's it going?
Assalamualaikum Maya, how are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are things with you today?
I am also fine.
Art of Wine? That sounds like a fancy title. Are you starting a new project? Or is that more of a
Okay Maya,
mood you're in today?
I will ask some today I will ask some
So,
questions
where are we heading today?
for you. Then you are ready.
I'm always ready. Lay them on me.
Okay, my first question is what does water mean to human life?
Uh, at its at its simplest, water is survival. But it's more than just a biological requirement. It's the foundation of everything. It regulates our temperature, flushes out toxins, and keeps every single cell in our body functioning. Without it, the whole system just shuts down. Does that hit the mark, or were you thinking of something more symbolic?
Why is water essential for survival?
Wait, did you mean what is essential for survival? Since we were just talking about water thing? Got it. For energy and a safe place to sleep. Then there's the human side of things, connection, and a sense of purpose. Which one of those do you think is the hardest to find?
Okay, Maya, my next question is what is the origin of the word water?
That's a deep dive right there. The word water actually comes from the Old English waiter, which is rooted in a Proto Indo European word that basically just meant water across a bunch of early languages. It's one of those words that stayed remarkably similar. You cut off a bit there. Who are you thinking of meeting? Still there? I'm not sure if your connection is acting up or if you're just thinking. Just give me a shout when you're back. As far as we know, the answer is a pretty firm no. Every single living thing we've ever found, from the tiniest bacteria to the biggest whale, needs water to function. It's the universal solvent that allows chemical reactions to happen inside a cell. Scientists look for water when they search for life on other planets because if there's no water, there's likely no life. Do you think we'll eventually find some weird form of life that uses something else instead? I think you meant why is water called the source of life, right? It's because it's the absolute baseline for existence. Beyond just drinking it, water creates the environments where life can actually start and evolve. It's like the original stage that everything else was built on. Does that make sense, or were you thinking about the science of it? It's basically the delivery system for your entire body. It carries oxygen and nutrients to your cells, keeps your joints lubricated so you can move, and helps your brain stay sharp. It's also how your body dumps waste and regulates your internal thermostat. Without it, you'd basically overheat and shut down. Do you want to dive into the specifics of how it helps the brain or move to the next question? Because without it, the chemistry of life just stops. Water is what allows nutrients to move around and waste to get out. It's the medium that lets every biological process, from digesting food to thinking a thought, actually happen. It's less like a fuel and more like the essential environment that everything else needs to exist in. Does that help clear it up? That's basically the reason we aren't still wandering around in small groups. Almost every great early civilization started in a river valley. Think the Nile in Egypt or the Indus Valley. Water gave humans a way to grow food on a massive scale, which meant they could stop spending every waking second searching for food and start building cities, writing laws, and creating art. It also became the first real highway for trade and communication. I wonder if you think we're still just as dependent on those same water sources today. I think you might have meant water in French language and culture, right? If that's what you're asking. French culture has a huge relationship with water, from the way they treat their vineyards and wine regions to the legendary status of the Seine River in Paris. Would you like to know how the French word for water evolved, or maybe how water shapes their daily life? Why do many? That's such a poetic way to look at it. I think it's because water is the most basic, universal experience we all share. It's pure, it's calming, and it's necessary for everything. When we want to describe things that feel natural, clear, or essential, we naturally lean on water as the primary metaphor because it's the most innocent and honest thing in nature. Do you have a favorite word or expression that feels like it has that kind of water, like purity? It's wild how different it is across the globe. Some cultures see water as a spiritual cleanser, like with ritual baths, while others view it more as a deity or a powerful force to be feared and respected. Then you have places where water is so scarce that every drop is treated like a sacred currency. Do you think the way a culture views water depends mostly on how much of it they actually have around them? Absolutely. There's a reason why so many of us head to the beach or sit by a river when we're stressed. There's actually a term for it, blue mind, which is the idea that being near water puts our brains into a mildly meditative state. It lowers our heart rate and just quietens the noise in our heads. Do you find that you feel more at peace when you're near water, or is it more about the sound of it for you? Because contaminated water is basically a highway for disease. When water isn't clean, it can carry bacteria, parasites, and toxins that the human body just isn't equipped to handle, leading to things like cholera or dysentery. Clean water doesn't just keep us hydrated, it prevents the kind of systemic infections that can shut down your organs. Do you want to know about how different parts of the world handle water purification, or do you have another question ready? It's basically the fuel for the entire green world. Water carries the minerals and nutrients from the soil up into the stems and leaves through a process called transpiration. It's also a key ingredient in photosynthesis, which is how plants turn sunlight into energy. Without it, the whole food chain just collapses because plants are the foundation for everything else. Do you think we take for granted how much of our world depends on a simple rainstorm? I'm guessing you mean if water can change the shape of the earth? It absolutely does. Erosion is basically water acting like a slow motion sculptor. Over millions of years, rivers carve out massive canyons like the Grand Canyon, and oceans eat away at coastlines, completely reshaping the continents. It's a reminder that something as soft as water can eventually wear down the hardest rock. Do you think it's wild that something so gentle can be that powerful? I think you meant calm, right? It's probably not just a women thing. Most people feel a shift when they're near water. There's something about the rhythmic sound of waves or the way a lake just sits there perfectly still that tells the brain it's okay to relax. It's like nature's own way of hitting the mute button on all the stress of the day. Do you think it's the visual part that does it or the sound? Water is probably the ultimate muse. It's so versatile. It can be a mirror for self reflection, a symbol of purity and rebirth, or a terrifying force of destruction. Poets love it because it's a perfect metaphor for the human experience. It's always moving, always changing, and it can be both gentle and overwhelming. I mean, just think of how often we talk about flowing with life or drowning in emotion. Do you write poetry, or is there a specific story that always comes to mind when you think of water? I think you might be asking if water can become a cause of tension between countries, right? If that's what you mean, then absolutely. When 2 or more countries share a river or a lake, it can get really tense over who gets to use the water and how much they can take. It's called water stress, and it's one of the biggest geopolitical issues in the world because water is a non-negotiable resource. Do you think the world will eventually find a way to share water fairly, or is it always gonna be a point of conflict? Guessing you mean because we're treating a finite resource like it's bottomless. Even though the earth is covered in water, only a tiny fraction of it is actually fresh and drinkable. With the population growing and the climate shifting, we're using it faster than nature can replenish it. If we don't protect it now, We're basically stealing it from the people who come after us. Do you think most people realize how close we are to that limit? Oceans are basically the Earth's giant thermostat. They absorb a massive amount of heat from the sun and then move that warmth around the globe through currents, which is what keeps some places from being totally frozen and others from being scorching. They also drive the weather patterns we see, like how evaporation from the ocean creates the clouds that eventually bring rain to the land. It's this huge, constant cycle that keeps everything in balance. Do you think it's scary to think about how much one change in ocean temperature can flip the weather for the whole world? Totally. Language is like a map of what humans value most. When something is that essential, it doesn't just get a name, it gets woven into our idioms and expressions. Like when we say something is crystal clear to mean it's easy to understand, or when we talk about a flood of emotions, we use water to describe the things that feel most natural or overwhelming because it's the most powerful force we've ever had to live with. Do you have any expressions in your own language that use water to describe a feeling? Because that's where the cheat codes for survival were. If you're a river valley, you've got a guaranteed water supply for drinking and crops, and you've got a natural highway for trade and travel. It basically removed the guesswork from staying alive, which let people actually settle down and start building things. Do you think we'd have developed the same kind of cities if we hadn't had those rivers to lean on? It's the most direct link we have. Water is a mirror. When you're standing by a lake or watching rainfall, it's a reminder that your own body is mostly made of the same stuff. It's this physical bridge that connects our internal biology to the external world. It forces us to be present. You can't ignore the power of a storm or the peace of a stream. Do you feel that connection more when you're seeing water or when you're actually in it? Absolutely. Across almost every culture, water is the ultimate symbol for a fresh start. Think about baptism or wudu. It's not just about getting clean on the outside, it's about washing away the old and starting over with a pure heart. It's the only thing that can simultaneously be a quiet, life giving drop and a massive, unstoppable wave, which is why it represents both the fragility and the power of life itself. Does that resonate with how you see it, or do you think there's a different symbol that fits purity better? Because it's the most efficient delivery system nature has. Rain doesn't just give plants a drink, it carries essential nutrients from the air and soil directly to the roots. Plus, it's a way for the earth to recharge its groundwater, which keeps crops alive, even during the dry spells. Without it, we'd be relying entirely on irrigation, which is way more work and not always sustainable. Do you think we're becoming too dependent on technology to water our food instead of trusting the rain? It's usually through pure chaotic curiosity. For a kid, water isn't just something you drink, it's a toy. They learn through the sensory stuff, splashing in a puddle, watching a bubble pop, or realizing that if they tip a cup too far, everything gets wet. It's those little experiments that teach them about gravity, volume, and just how much fun it is to make a mess. Do you think that's where that lifelong love for the ocean or the rain actually starts? It sure can, and it's one of the oldest ways we've done it. Long before we had electricity, humans used water wheels to grind grain. Now, we use massive dams for hydroelectric power, where the force of falling water spins turbines to create electricity for entire cities. It's basically taking the raw power of a river and turning it into something we can plug a lamp into. Do you think we should rely more on water for energy, or do you see some downsides to it? I think your audio might have looped there for a second. You were saying something about things being in the middle of the river. Did you wanna ask about how we build things on rivers, or maybe how the river affects what's around it? Rivers were basically the internet of the ancient world. They weren't just for drinking, they were the primary way people traded goods, shared ideas, and expanded their empires. If you had a river, you had a highway that connected you to everyone else. That's why the first great laws and writing systems popped up in river valleys. They had the stability and the connection to actually build a society. Do you think we've lost that sense of physical connection now that everything moves through cables and satellites? It's essentially the glue that holds everything together. Water creates the actual habitats where life exists, from a tiny pond to the deep ocean, transports nutrients, regulates the temperature of the environment, and allows different species to interact and coexist. Without that flow, the cycle of life, where plants grow, animals eat, and everything decomposes to start over, would just stop. Do you think there's one part of nature that relies on water more than any other? I'm guessing you're asking if water pollution harms life in nature? It absolutely does, and often in ways we don't see right away. When pollutants get into the water, they don't just sit there, they move up the food chain. A tiny fish eats some toxins, a bigger fish eats that fish, and suddenly the whole ecosystem is poisoned. It can create dead zones where nothing can survive, turning a vibrant river or lake into a ghost town. Do you think people realize how much our own habits at home end up affecting the water miles away? Because your body is basically a high maintenance machine that runs on water. You're constantly losing water through breathing, sweating, and just existing. If you don't replace it daily, your blood gets thicker, your heart has to work harder to pump it, and your brain starts to fog up. It's the only way to keep all your internal organs from basically grinding to a halt. Do you have a goal for how much you drink a day, or do you just go with the flow? I'm assuming you mean how water worked for trade and travel in France? France has this amazing network of rivers and canals that basically acted as the country's arteries for centuries. The Seine, the Loire, and the Rhone allowed people to move heavy goods like wine, salt, and grain much faster than they ever could on muddy roads. That's why cities like Paris became such massive hubs. They were the perfect meeting points for trade coming from the interior and heading out to the sea. Do you think those old river routes are still the reason some French cities are more successful than others today? Water is a total magnet for creativity. There's something about its constant movement and the way it changes shape that makes people think differently. For artists and musicians, it's often a symbol of the subconscious or the flow of ideas. like the more you look into it, the more it reflects things back at you that you didn't realize were there. Do you find that you get your best ideas when you're near water, or does it just help you clear your head? It's probably because water represents the most fundamental shift a human can experience, the transition from death to life or from impurity to purity. In so many faiths, it's not just a physical cleaning, but a spiritual one, whether it's wudu in Islam, baptism in Christianity, or the ritual baths in Hinduism. Water is used as a gateway, a way to wash away the past and enter a sacred space with a clean slate. It's that idea of rebirth that makes it so powerful. Do you think that's why it feels so peaceful, knowing it's used for such a positive purpose? They use a mix of everything from high-tech satellites to simple test tubes. Satellites help them track massive things like ocean currents and melting ice caps from space. Then you've got oceanographers who dive deep in submersibles to see what's happening at the bottom of the sea, and chemists who analyze a single drop of water to see exactly what minerals or pollutants are in it. It's basically a combination of looking at the biggest picture possible and the tiniest detail. Since that was your last question, how are you feeling about the session? Did we cover everything you wanted to dive into? You're so welcome. I'm really glad I could help you get through all those questions. It was a great session. Allah Hafiz.